In Isaiah 32, the Bible gives us a clear progression from God providing a respite in a breeze when it says, the man shall be as an hiding place from a wind, to a storm when it says he will be a shelter in a time of storm. When I was a child, our cars virtually never had air conditioning. Anytime we went somewhere, we literally went with the windows rolled down. And we would often stick our hands and arms out the windows and feel the force of the air blowing against our arms. We would turn our hands one way and the winds would push our hands up, another, and the wind would push our hands down. Even at 50 or 60 miles an hour, there was an incredible force of wind blowing against us. I've also been in several hurricanes. The winds there can be well over 100 miles an hour. And those winds are impossible to stand against. They would blow anyone over who would be foolish enough to try to stand against it alone. Winds can be a force we simply cannot stand against. In Isaiah 32, God uses the image of such a wind to remind us that there will be times when the winds of adversity will be blowing against us, sometimes with such a force that we alone cannot stand against it. In those times, we are confronted with the reality that life is out of our control. In those times, God teaches us at least two things about life. The first is obvious. We simply do not control much in this life. On a good day, we may control the decisions we make, but we never control the consequences of those decisions. And that brings us to a second lesson we learn. And that's that God is always in control. We can trust his control. One of the great places to be in our relationship with the Lord is where we truly trust God to protect us in times of need. The problem is that the only way to teach us the reality of this is for us to be in a time of need, a time when we cannot meet our own needs. That probably is as good a description of the times we're in right now as you could have. Nobody really knows what's going on. Nobody really knows what the answers of this virus will be. But as a Christian, I know that I have a God who is in control, as much control today as he always has been. And this is what Isaiah was talking about when he said our God is a shelter in the time of storm. There is clearly a progression between this phrase and the one that preceded it. In the first phrase, there is simply a wind. It's referred to as just a strong wind, but nothing else. Here, it's a storm. It would include lightning and thundering. It would include the debris that such a wind would bring up. It certainly would include the rain. It is a much more terrifying experience. It is literally when life becomes a hurricane, when it's completely out of control, we have a shelter. There's another contrast between the first phrase and this. In the first phrase, the stress is learning of God, fellowshipping with him. Here, it is sheer protection. We have a God who will protect us from the winds of adversity in our lives. Whether those winds are symbolic of our enemies, whether it's those who seek our destruction or issues that would seek to destroy our lives, or whether they're literally winds of a strong natural storm or natural threat that threatens our lives, God is our shelter in those times of storm. The stress of the shelter is a place of absolute security. It is safety. It is a reliance on the power of the one who created the shelter as the one who also sustains and protects that shelter. It is also a place where no enemy can enter. And the reason for that is it is the shelter of Almighty God. The winds and waters obey him because he created them. Every situation in life must obey him for the same reason. He brought them and he created them. Our God is in every case a shelter in the time of the storms of life.